we're just trying it out a little different this time to see how it works.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have about, like I said, we have about 99 people registered, but we'll have to wait and see how many join on YouTube Live. We've yet to hear from our friends who are on YouTube. And in case either of you are okay turning on your video, that'll be great as well, so we can see you guys while we speak. Both Kaustav and Lian. Thanks, Lian.
Hey guys, sorry, this is Vishak here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi Vishak. We can finally hear you.
Sorry, basically Zoom wanted to prove that I was human and had to select all of the.
Okay, all right. We're glad you could navigate through it. Vishak, if you feel all right, you can turn your video on. So because we're also doing this on YouTube Live, and only if your video is on can we see your face.
Of course.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I think we'll get started, guys. Right. Okay. Greetings, everyone. On behalf of the Roundtable team of the S20 batch, I welcome you to session 2 of the webinar series. We were thrilled with the turnout in the last session, and we hope this session adds value to all of you as well. My name is Matangi Chandrasekhar, and I'm from India. And today's session will be moderated by me and my friend Achit from Singapore. In response to feedback that we received from all the participants from the last session, we've actually scheduled the session to be a little longer for 90 minutes, with the last 30 minutes specifically set aside for Q&A. The topic that we intend to cover today include there are 3 topics that we want to cover today. The first one is entirely about the pre-MBA preparation that us incoming students would need to undertake so as to really improve our experience at HEC, and also to understand a bit on life in the first few weeks in school. The second topic that we'd like to cover today is also about navigating clubs, specialization, and leadership roles at HEC. And the third topic is one of probably the most relevant and most important topics for us to cover today, given that a lot of us are grappling with this decision, is the panelists' take on the difference between the Jan and the September intake. So joining us today to share their thoughts on these topics and more, we have Lian from the J19 batch and Kaustav Gupta and Vishak Krishnan from the S19 batch. Thank you so much, guys, for taking the time out to do this with us today. Starting with Kaustav, followed by Lian and Vishak. It'll be great if you can take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your pre-MBA experience and also what you plan to do post your MBA at HEC. Kaustav?
Sure. Thank you for organizing this, Archit. And how do I pronounce your name correctly?
Matangi.
Matangi. Okay.
Yeah,
Matangi, got it. Thank you for organizing this. So I'm Kaustav. Before coming here, I was mainly working in strategy and analytics for startups and also an NGO. I graduated from IIT Bombay in 2015 and have 4 years of work experience now. And now I'm in the strategy specialization and hopefully to continue my career in strategy. So that's about it. Anything else? Vishak?
Vishak, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Just give me 1 minute. Hey, am I audible to you guys right now?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Okay, this is way better. So thank you again, Matangi and Archit, for doing this. It's great to meet the new set of people who are going to be coming to HEC. I have personally sort of enjoyed my experience till here, and I'm happy to sort of share some of those insights with you guys. However, it might seem like a really tough time right now, but I wouldn't be doing anything else right now. It might sound cliche, but I've loved the experience till now, and I'm happy to share some of the thoughts. A brief introduction about me. I was working with Matangi at some point of time as a transactions advisor at Ernst & Young. I did due diligence for private equity, venture capital, and strategy clients, and also spent a little bit of time on the corporate strategy front in a global CFO office role at Oyo Hotels. Oyo Hotels is a SoftBank investee company, and I was responsible for cost optimization projects as well as launch for the UK market. I was fortunate enough to work in different parts of the world. EY and Oyo allowed me to travel to China, UAE, work a bit in London as well as in New York. And I think, like all typical finance people who joined the MBA, I wanted to build on my skill sets around core finance and get more insights to strategy, operations, and HEC seemed like a great school for it. There's a lot of consultants that come out of HEC, and given my career path, which I was sort of keen on pursuing consulting around strategy, it seemed like a great option to be here. And that's where we are.
Awesome. Thanks, Prasad. Liam?
Great. So happy to meet everyone, and thanks to Matangi and Arshid for organizing this this session. I wish I had something similar when I started at HEC. Instead, we just got a couple of emails, and we were expected to be ready just like that. So I think this is really important for people who are coming in September this year, especially during this time. For me, as you know, I'm from, maybe you do not know, but I'm from Singapore. I was born there, raised there, and then I moved to Thailand when I was 12. So I lived in those two countries before deciding to go to the UK for my undergrad. Studied English, language and literature, followed by a master's in journalism. And then I have altogether 6 years of work experience, 4 years in FMCG marketing in Thailand, and 2 years in PR and journalism in London. So when I was in Thailand doing FMCG marketing, I really wanted to come to France to do my MBA specifically because I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. I didn't want to go to the UK again, and the US was just like it was too far and also really expensive. So I decided HEC was the best option for me. Not only will I get to learn a new language, but also a new culture, and that has been kind of the basis of my experience here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, all three of you. We're very, very excited to have such a diverse bunch today with us. So we'll dive right in then. So we'll start with the first topic on what incoming students can do best to prepare for the MBA experience at HEC. Kaustubh, this one's directed at you. Given that you don't come from a traditional finance background, did you take up any specific courses before you started your MBA at HEC? Basically, if you can walk us through any pre-MBA preparation in terms of courses or activities that you undertook before you started school at HEC, and in what way you think it helped your MBA experience?
So, thank you for the question. As you mentioned, I'm not from a finance background, so that was something that I was worried about. So in order to tackle that problem where I wanted to first identify what skill sets I'm missing. So exactly like you mentioned, finance, but also on communication skills, I feel that I was behind. So through some connections and through the MBA helper, whatever you call the MBA consultant, I was able to get in touch with a literature student who does the communication courses in Bombay. I gave an examination for that was conducted by the Trinity College based in London, and they do communication tests in India and other countries as well. So that was something I worked upon. For finance, I specifically tried to give the CF exam, at least level 1. I didn't prepare that much, but that did give me some benefit going into term 1 specifically, where some courses I felt like my classmates were lost, and I would have been lost as well had I not at least studied a little bit. So that, I think, some pre-preparation is fantastic to do, because that just gives you a small advantage in the classes. But courses here are comprehensive and are detailed enough, and the professors have the time to, attend to you if you have any particular doubts as well.
That's great. Vishak and Liam, feel free to jump in. Anything to add?
Sure. Let me take that. I want to give you a broader perspective around the MBA experience, around what I did. I primarily did two things. I wanted to make sure that the existing network that I had enough conversations with them about why I'm doing what I'm doing and how I would like to be involved with them professionally in terms of how we can create value together, etc. So that meant thinking of whoever I needed to reach out before I start the MBA, whether it was I would have worked with them 3-4 years ago in different places. So that was a big part of before coming here, and all of that has helped, to be honest. After I've come here, it's been great to reach back to some previous bosses, some partners from Ernst & Young, and have really good and better conversations. So that was part A. The second part was more around case cracking. And I know me and you have had a conversation about this, Matangi, in terms of maybe I could have done a bit more if I knew about it. But I did start. In terms of seeing what is case cracking, how can I prepare better, given that, a large pool of you might want to come to consulting. It might not be a bad thing to actually get a sense of what case cracking is. So there are two thought points on this. So some people who get into Bain do 120 cases. There's also people who do 15 cases and get in. It depends on the kind of person you are. But if you know better, if you know what to do before you come here, you're already ahead of everyone else. So two things from my side for you guys to think about.
That's great, Vishak. Very pointed tips for us. Liam, anything to add to what Vishak and Kaustubh said?
So for me, it was more of the language that I wanted to learn. And so before I came, I did pick up a bit of French here and there online. And, I know my classmates who actually did courses in India, they went to, proper classes before they came as well. I would say if you're looking to study or to stay in France and work in France, knowing French is crucial. So that's something to keep in mind. And of course, communication day to day. If you don't know any French at all, it's good luck.
Right. We have a question specifically on language for you later into the session. But okay, awesome. Very, very useful tips, guys, all of it. Okay, question number 2. See, HEC boasts a lot about its diversity, right? Which means the majority of the people that start school at HEC are not from France, which would mean the first couple of weeks at school will be really challenging, in terms of navigating both academically and non-academic tasks, right? So Vishak, if you could take this one and share some of the challenges and difficulties that you faced in the first few weeks in settling down at HEC and some tips for us so that we are a little less overwhelmed when we start school and hopefully in September.
Sure. I'm gonna talk about how it was for me in September. You guys might find it a little different in terms of what the current scenario is. So just that caveat in terms of September 19 was a completely new world. Seems like so long ago right now. So to be honest, I think there was enough hand-holding done by the school in terms of getting us onboarded. So if you look at what all needs to be done, you need to have a rent agreement, bank account in place, get all of your documents that you need to submit for your visa, long stay that needs to get validated by the school. There's a very good point of contact from the student services perspective, who is Joanna. Joanna is extremely helpful to the MBA students in terms of telling us which are the touch points in the administration that we need to speak to. So I think the challenges were primarily to sort of prioritize what needs to be done. To be honest, I think that was the biggest challenge. There's at least 100 things lined up in front of you, both in terms of time and effort how do you prioritize what really matters for you, what really works for you. There will be 17 clubs that will vie for your interest. Don't quote me on the number, but it's as high as that. That will vie for your interest to be a part of their activities. There will be activities where you go to a chateau, there'll be dinners, there'll be networking lunches. You will do so much networking that you'll be bored of networking in the first month, probably. But you still have to do it. You still have to get excited about it. My point and the biggest challenge that I felt, at least, was how do you prioritize? How do you make sure what you do is really focused towards what you want? And I think taking that step back and not delving into everything at one go is something that you can think to do even in the beginning of the session.
Okay, that's great. Kaustav, Lian, anything to add on to Vishak? So please feel free to jump in, though I direct the question to one particular person. Feel free to jump in if you have anything to add.
Yeah, Lian, go ahead.
I think Vishak really summarized it very well. So yeah, priorities, a lot. I mean, your time and your energy are limited, so just choose wisely.
I'll agree.
Awesome. So Lian, the next one for you, like I said, on French, right? So we want to know from you, what is the entry level requirement? Like, if as an incoming student, what's the basic level of French that I need to know? A, and B, for anyone who wants to land a job either in France or outside of France but within Europe, what are the different levels of French proficiency that's expected across industries? So if you can throw some light on that.
Okay, so for the first question, I think if you're coming into HEC, if you're starting with A, you'll probably, if you don't know any French, you're at A1 or there's A0 also. That means you're like basic, you don't know anything at all. You don't even know how to count. You don't even know bonjour. So if you come in at that level, it's a lot harder for you to progress up to, say, B1, B2 at the end of your MBA. Just because of the time it takes to learn a new language, right? I would say, just get a bit of head start. Start learning how to speak like greetings, count numbers, and things like that, so that when you come in, there's a test that you have to do, like we did, and they will place you in the right language class. So the language classes are not, it's not mandatory, but you do need a third language to graduate at HEC. So a lot of people, they have 3 languages already, and then they might not want to do French, and that's fine. But then the classes are free, so you might as well take them, and then you can graduate easily without having to find your third language certificate. So I would say start with like A1, A2 level, and then hopefully graduate. When you graduate, you have a B1 level, which is enough to pass to graduate in HEC. And the second question is about working in France. You do need to speak French to a certain level to work for like a French multinational company. A lot of companies say they do not require it, but those are like the big companies, and even if they don't require it, it's knowing it is. It's like knowing how to speak to people. You understand their culture. You understand how they think in a way, because I think a lot of our thoughts are shaped by our language and vice versa. So that is one thing, but for certain industries like consulting, you do need to know French. It's you have to know it to a native level. So if you're thinking about France, I would say French is almost like mandatory. If other countries in Europe, you don't need to know French. So yeah.
But does knowing French help in and around? I mean, if you pick up French and you land up with a job outside of France, does that help?
Maybe in Italy or Spain, because those languages are quite similar. But in places like Germany or like even Austria, I don't think knowing French helps. But yeah, and like Switzerland, they also speak French, right? There's like the French-speaking part of Switzerland. And then African countries, I know this is not Europe, but there are a lot of African countries that speak French. So yeah, I mean, knowing French is not limited to France, but it's not exactly necessary for countries like Germany. I don't know, what else? Germany, Netherlands, and maybe the UK. I mean, everyone speaks English, right?
Yeah. Okay, great. So the last and final question in this topic is open to all. We can start with Lian again on this question. Is if there was one thing you wish you knew before you started school at HEC, what would that be and why?
So yeah, thanks for this question. It's a very interesting one. Before I started at HEC, actually, I didn't really know much. Like I didn't really have very many expectations. But if there's one thing I would say, it's that I would tell myself back then that I would be challenged in a lot of ways that I didn't expect to be. And that is part of the whole experience. You don't really know what you're getting into. Like even if you do all this research and you attend these sessions, etc. I think they're really, really helpful and useful. But also like you're going to be surprised in so many ways. But yeah, just to have that mindset. I think I had that mindset. But then I could have also, told myself to be more like resilient, because you don't know what's going to happen, and especially with this virus situation, like if I had somehow prepared myself, maybe it would have been easier for me. I don't know. What about you guys, Vishak and Kaustav?
Sure. Let me sort of step in. I don't think there was any preparing for this present situation. To be honest, let me. Lian, I hear you where you're coming from. I wish we had some sort of fail-safe. But let's also be honest to each other in terms of, I don't think there was any preparing for it. But if I were to sort of do over the term from September, what I would understand here is that it's a different kind of an MBA experience. The smaller cohort is very different from a typical 1,000-member cohort across in Paris. There's another big school here. I'm sure all of you know about it. So the experience is different in terms of you will keep meeting your classmates whether you like it or not, where in classes, in the laundry room, at the grocery store. That means that you better start creating those relationships much sooner. And I think that means that your networks are stronger, even though they are not larger. And if you can work on that earlier, it helps to identify that this is a school where everyone sticks close to each other. And if you know that before, I think it's an advantage.
Awesome. Kaustav?
I was just thinking of what Lian and Vishaka mentioned, and like they've covered most of it. Something that I would have be happy to have known before coming here would have been like people are really focused. Like you can't just go through the MBA experience. Like every day there's something happening, and you'll miss out if you don't pay attention. So I feel like if someone had told me that you need to be focused from the start, maybe that would have like enriched my experience even more. I think that would be the major thing, that if someone had just told me that you have something every day, so like make every day worthwhile, because it's a short program, right? It's a 16-month program. It's not that you have 2 years to take your time and really learn. It's comparatively shorter. So like enjoy each day, try to enjoy each day. I would say that to you all.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Now over to Archit for topic 2 and 3.
Thank you, Matangi. So with that, we would like to move on to topic 2 for today's session, in which we'll go more in depth in the MBA experience. So in this section, we'll try to cover a few topics that range from specializations to club leadership positions. And in this topic, my first question is to you, Lian. We understand that you're pursuing the digital transformation specialization. So could you walk us through a bit about what is your specialization all about? Could you also tell us what is the difference between an elective and a specialization? And, like in term 4, where there is an option between a specialization and internship, which one would you recommend students pick up, and why? I know it's a 3-part question. Sorry for throwing it at you at once.
But actually, Lean's the best person to ask this question. She has coached enough of us in S19 as well about this.
Okay, so the first question is what is the digital innovation specialization, right? I'll answer that one first. So basically, the digital innovation specialization is teaching you to work with companies and with groups to come up with solutions for anything from like a French retailer to, I don't know, this startup working in video communications technology, and just trying to get you to understand what are the issues that these companies will face when they're trying to innovate, or when they're trying to come up with something new that is related to digital. So it can be like an improvement on existing technology or improvement on a service or product, but it can also be something new, which is completely unforeseen. And they're trying to push us into thinking like, how can you innovate in this current business model, and come up with something new that is digitally related. So a lot of it is about understanding technologies like blockchain, what else, data analytics. So those were some of the topics, as well as social media marketing. So that is the digital innovation specialization. And for the second question, the electives versus what is the difference between elective and specialization? So a specialization is something that you do in 3 months. You just focus on that particular track that you have chosen. So if you've chosen finance, you will only study finance for 3 months, from September to December, and you will do this along with the J. So for you, it will be along with the January batch. And the electives are more of like stuff that you can pick and choose to do anytime within, say, the winter term and the spring term. And the electives will come from different specializations. So you will have finance electives, strategy electives, digital innovation electives, and you can choose up to 7 or 8, depending on whether you are a participant or a part of the MBAT core team. And then, so that's the second question. And then the last one is about term 4 and internships. So for you, your term 4, you can decide to do a 6-month. You can decide to do a 6-month internship, and you don't have to do electives for that because you're basically done with your schoolwork. Vishak might want to add on to that, or Kostap.
Sure. So I think a little early for us, for both me and Kaustubh, from an S19 perspective on the specialization. That has not started yet. We're still in our term 3. So you guys will have a similar format to ours. So electives, so the way I looked at electives, where I tried to do, and probably Kaustubh can give his viewpoint, but I tried to do things that I would never do in a normal day. So for example, I took up courses on luxury. I took up courses on social media marketing. And these are experiences that are different from what I've done till date. And probably this is a great opportunity for me to learn a different lens, because that's what I came here to do. So that's part A. Electives were a little bit more diversified. It wasn't focused enough, but it's a great opportunity to touch point things. So my term 4 is actually, I have, and all of you can probably think about it as well. So I have an exchange program lined up with a B school in the US. So there is a criteria that everyone goes through. There is a random selection process based on application, where you get allotted to a school of your choosing. So I was allotted Columbia Business School. That's a great opportunity, of course. I'm looking forward to that. Given current circumstances, we don't know yet how that will take place, whether it will be online or hybrid of online and physical. However, as a fail-safe, I did choose the strategy specialization. 2 things about that. Most common consultants who want to go to consulting sort of take that up. It focuses on primarily 2 things. 1, creating frameworks for solving business problems, and 2, focusing on growth. Now, whether the term, and this was all in 2019, I don't know how the course is going to change for this year, but till date, they felt that growth is the biggest driver that consulting firms are looking at. If you can have frameworks around how to do that, that's a great way to do it. And they had talks with consulting firms, CAC 40 companies, to build the whole experience around it. Hope that answers your question.
Kaustav, anything to add on?
Yeah, sure. So I've also taken the strategy specialization. I was thinking of two things. First was, does choosing a particular specialization limit my career opportunities? So that did not seem to be the case, of course. Except maybe I think for finance, like if you want to build a career in finance, it's good. I think it's good to have a specialization in finance. I think I'm not sure Vishak would be able to maybe tell us better, but I feel
Sure.
that's the only specialization that would cause a problem.
Yeah, let me just come in. I think if you want to do finance and if you do not have a finance background, you should go heavy on it. You learn a lot in terms of developing your core skill sets. So that's one way to approach it. But if you already have a background, if you've done CPA, if you've done work in finance before, you might want to think of something else to sort of add to your kitty of technical knowledge.
Yeah,
Sorry,
thanks. Thanks, Vishak. So yeah, I'll just finish my point and then you can go ahead. So the second part was, of course, where I want to, like, where can I learn the most? A couple of specializations that I was considering was, of course, strategy, advanced management, and digital transformation, because I come from a digital background mainly. So I felt that the strategy courses seemed to be more comprehensive. They were strategies, I think, most associated with other specializations as well. Like you will have strategies linked to every other specialization. I feel even digital is to an extent, but here the courses are, I feel are more, focused on partnering with other specializations and, getting a feel of how strategies applied in different specializations. So I felt that was the best for me in terms of even my career, where I want to go into in-house strategy or just general strategy and analytics work. I felt this was the best thing for me to do.
Thank you, Kaustav, Lian, and Vishak. So moving on, my next question is directed to Vishak. Vishak, as a VP of two industry-related clubs, the Consulting Club and the Private Equity and VC Club, could you talk a bit more about the roles clubs play in providing networking opportunities and industry exposure? What are some of the events they hold? And in your opinion, what is the impact belonging to a club, industry club, has on getting to the career of your choice?
Sure. I think clubs, from my perspective, are a critical part of your MBA experience, right? And I was fortunate enough to be part of the leadership team of two large clubs. So Lian here was also part of the leadership team for the Consulting Club before our term. I think the clubs per se provide you with opportunities to network, gain knowledge, be in front of potential employers, even before you get into the hiring process. So let me give you a few examples, some of the really good events that happened. So this is in November 2019. We went to a London trek from the Private Equity Venture Capital Club. We had almost a week worth of 5 days worth of visits to limited partners. So someone like a Canadian pension fund, CVC, a bulge bracket private equity fund, one of the largest in the world, Silver Lake, and Stepstone advisors, basically VCs like EQT, and these large names. We got to be a part of these meetings where we had FaceTime with them for about 2 hours in their offices. Brilliant experience. All of these were not hiring opportunities. I want to sort of bring that up. But what they were was real insightful sessions about what is it to work in a place like this and create a network with some amazing people. So if you've had a good conversation with them and if you're able to sort of follow it up with few more conversations online or offline through LinkedIn, you start making a network in London, you start making a network in VC, you start making a network in private equity. So that was one really well organized session by the Private Equity Club. So I loved that. Another one from the Consulting Club, we just had one on Friday, to be honest. And I was sort of leading that panel discussion with 3 people from Bain. There were 2 alums, one from Dubai office, one from the Amsterdam office. And we were fortunate enough to have a recruiter sort of join in as well. This was an MBA recruiter. She heads recruitment for EMEA. And what she felt was there were 100 people on the panel. They asked really smart questions. They were all interested in the program. And she was very willing to have everyone write to her, in fact, over email to understand more about Bain and consulting. That was a great touch point, right? Imagine Bain sort of opening up their inbox to you. That's great access already. Other than that, we also had really personalized sessions. This is the last example I'm going to give. So we were able to have a 5-group session with very senior partner from BCG who was a professor here. So he taught us problem solving. His name is Professor Stephen Rent. He taught us problem solving, and what we as the consulting club were able to do was speak to him about what our wish was, or what our motto was. We had lined up 5 sessions with him. Each session, a close group of 5 people. And what we will not do is not talk about the day-to-day of, how do I do case cracking? What do I do fit? You have to understand, this is a guy with 20 years of experience in consulting. So we spoke about broad contours of what does a career in consulting mean? How do I look at a long-term perspective, right? What did you gain that you've really enjoyed? These were really insightful one-to-one sessions that the club could bring about. And I know that the participants, I was one of them, I loved it. To organize it, to be a part of, I know everyone else sort of liked it as well. So these are some examples of what a club can do. And putting yourself out there both as a club member and a leadership position to companies saying that, hey, you're leading this, but also as a participant is pretty useful.
Thank you, Vishak. Lian and Kaustav, do you have anything to add on to that?
Please go ahead.
So yeah, Vishak summarized everything really well. I think for the consulting club, I can just only add on to that. The sessions that we had with Professor Ren were really insightful for me personally as well, just to get that sense of connection and also direct contact with someone so senior. And that's something you will definitely be able to leverage if you're in a leadership position, or even if you're just a participant in some event. But it's, the clubs are contested, right? All of the clubs are contested. So I would say if you're really interested in a particular, industry or topic, when you come into the MBA, just really make sure that you get your name out there, that you tell your colleagues who are in your peer group that you're interested in this, so that when it comes to election time, they'll be like, oh yeah, I know this guy, he's definitely into finance, or he's definitely into let's say digital innovation, so that they're more likely to vote for you, and they'll see you as someone who's more committed.
Thank you, Lian.
So that's
I think
my main.
Kaustav?
Yeah, so I am part of the Digital Transformation Club as a VP, and also advisor on the consulting and the healthcare club. So there are, I think, multiple components of why being part of a club is very crucial. First, of course, which Vishak and Lean mentioned in terms of the reach, and the point also you addressed is the reach that you get. It's not just limited to who you meet, but even people you do not meet, you get to, as a club member, you get to be in touch with various recruiting managers. Through the career center helps you build, find the right people to first connect with, and of course you then build your own network. But even interactions with them, what the industry is looking at in terms of jobs, consulting, of course, they focus on a special set of skills, but then for Digital Transformation Club or for a healthcare club, you would want other skill sets. So you see what different skill set, different kind of industries are looking at. And then you can obviously focus on helping your fellow classmates, build on that. Second, I would say, is just working in a team. The stakes, I won't say the stakes are very high, but stakes are high enough, and you feel part of a team and working with people so for me particularly, having worked only in India, this was a very good chance to work with people from different nationalities and different cultures. I'm part of the council as well. I was VP communications for a while, but now I'm only VP sustainability, and that also is a similar team working experience that really, that broadens my mind. That is one of the reasons I had come to France or come outside India to do an MBA, was to work with people from different cultures, and HEC is the perfect place for that. So that's my 2 cents on that.
I think just to sort of round this off, I want to also talk to you about something called as the Dubai Trek and the London Trek that the consulting clubs organized. And both of them were opportunities that led to people getting recruited in different firms, specifically in the MBB firms. So I think so those are 2 great experiences as well, just to sort of leave you guys with that. And those happen every year.
Thank you, all 3 of you. I think that answered the question in wonderful detail. And I think our participants will be very glad to hear the level of detail and the level of knowledge that you shared right now. My third and final question for this topic is directed at you, Costa. Like you mentioned, you're a VP on the MBA Council. Could you tell us a bit more about what the MBA Council does, and how does anyone get elected or selected for leadership positions on the MBA Council and in other clubs, and maybe as like student ambassadors or any other leadership roles that are available on campus?
So yeah, I list down the leadership positions that you can get is of course through the clubs. The president of course gets more credits, and the VPs get their 1 credit each. Then there are of course the council positions. There is 1 president. Our previous council had 6 VPs. We have 7 VPs, and then there are director positions. And then there are obviously student ambassadors. There are different kind of ambassador roles like marketing ambassador, and then there are some other roles as well, social media ambassador, where
Kaustav, I think we lost you.
Yeah.
Kaustav?
Kaustav? I think while we wait for him to come back, Lian or Vishak, could you take over and maybe add your viewpoint on this question?
Lian, please go ahead.
Yeah. So as Kaushap stopped at a social media ambassador, you can also be like student life rep, which is you basically are the connection point between your cohort and the student life team, the administrative team here at HEC. So that could be, you want to organize events, or if there are issues regarding student life that you want to raise to the administration, you will be the contact point for that. So you get re-elected, or rather you put yourself up for election and your classmates vote for you every term. So for each batch, I think every core term, so for each batch, we had two student life reps for each cohort, as in, yeah, your cohort might be split into 4 groups or 3 groups, depending on how many students there are in one cohort. And then for academic rep, which you can also, well, firstly, you put yourself up for election, and then after that you get elected. That also is like a termly tenure, and you are the contact point for the academic activities on campus. So relationships with the professors, with the academic team at HEC. If there are any issues with the class material, or if you want to change how the class is not run, but how it's how it's organized, then you can obviously bring that up as you're the person who's responsible for that, reminding classmates about assignments, stuff like that. So there are lots of positions which you can get involved in here on campus, and these are all credits that you will get leadership credits for.
Yeah, I think the overarching conversation here is there are certain mandatory credits that you need to have around leadership. Some of them were available by taking up the seminar which was earlier at Sancerre. But apart from that, these leadership credits from the club, as well as being an academic rep or a career rep, could get you. Obviously, the administration will let you know about what is the number required for your batch. But just to sort of let you know, the way it works is you need to have a minimum number of leadership credits, and everybody gets an opportunity to pick multiple leadership roles. I would not be too fussed about it, but rather look at it as an opportunity for really doing what you want to and contributing.
Yeah, so sorry, I got disconnected. The internet got disconnected for some reason. Anyway, as I was saying, like as they mentioned, you need 4 leadership credits to graduate. You get 2 from the seminar, and you need to get 2 from other leadership positions. That's how usually it's been written in the constitution of the MBA as well. So that is what you need to like. You'll get the breakdown of how many credits you get for each position. You get position for MBAT as well, of course. Forgot to mention that. You get leadership positions for that as well. And how you go about forming teams for council and clubs is like you get together with your batchmates who you like. Let's say for the consulting club, you get together with people who are serious about it, because there are some big clubs which are the consulting, marketing, finance, which get more budget than the smaller clubs, which would be digital transformation. Not tech is also a big club. Which other specialized, which other clubs are there? Like smaller digital, forgetting some of the clubs, but there are some clubs who get a lower budget. So you form teams with people who are serious enough. There's a 5 board member, which includes 1 president and 4 vice presidents. You'll get all the details. It's much better that you come here and experience that, and go through the process of forming teams. And then you have elections. You have elections for everything on the same day, except MBAT. MBAT is a separate thing. Hopefully we'll be able to we'll have elections very soon for the January batch, the January 20 batch. So I hope that you'll be able to maybe witness it, or maybe we'll be able to share with you how the elections have gone and who will be the new council with you before. So you can get in touch with them and ask them doubts as well.
Yeah, Chris, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you, Kaustav. I think that was a wonderful idea about getting in touch with the new incoming MBA council. Thank you, Vishak and Leon as well. I think you guys comprehensively again answered this question better than we had ever expected. With that, I think this brings us close to the topic for the MBA experience. And we would like to move on to the next topic, which is something that has been on the minds of a lot of our batchmates. As you know, because of COVID, a lot of people are considering either deferring their admission to either the January or the September intakes for next year. And there's a lot of confusion. Even though we understand the course structure, we don't really understand how the January and September intakes really differ. So our question is basically very open-ended. It is, could you guys share some of the key differences between the Jan and September intake, the advantages or disadvantages of each with regards to clubs, elections, or networking opportunities, and the whole MBA experience? Maybe Leon, you could start off with your views on the Jan intake, and then Vishak and Kaustav could take over with their viewpoints on the September intake.
Sure. So I think that in general, right, the January intake is a lot shorter because we start in Jan and we end in June. The following year, right? Whereas you start in September and then you finish in June, the same time as us. So we are part of the same, as in not you and me, but like the Jan and the June intake will be part of the same graduating class. So for me, I'm in the same graduating class as the September 18 batch. Okay, so what this means is that when I started my course at HEC, I had to hit the ground running because we had Careers Week, not Careers Week, but we had a career fair at HEC, which is one of the biggest in January. And there was a lot less time for us to apply for internships because a lot of the internship positions are filled last year. So we're filled in September or towards December of like the year before we came. So then you really have to scramble to find something for the summer if you want to do an internship. Whereas in September, you have more time to do that. So that is one of the differences, the main differences from between the Jan and the September intakes. As for in terms of like advantages and disadvantages, I think it depends on what you are looking for and also what is a subjective thing. So for me, I think the big advantage of the September batch is just the time that you have to look for jobs, to figure out what you want to do, and just enjoy your MBA experience. Whereas the Jan batch, we have much less time. But the advantage of that also is that we kind of finish sooner, as in we study for a year, and then after that we can graduate and look for jobs. Whereas for the September batch, by the time you finish studying, and then by the time you actually graduate and get your certificate, there's a 6-month gap, which is when some people might choose to do internships. So you can do 2 internships in a September batch. You can do one in the summer, and then you can do one the following year from January to June. That can be considered an advantage as well. Vishak and Kaustubh might add on to my.
I think Leon was sort of best suited to sort of give that answer. But I think from my perspective, what I saw was the size of the cohort is a little different. I think that's one of the other thing that is there. So basically, the September batch is around 170, and then the Jan batch is around 90-ish. Already a smaller cohort, probably just gets even more smaller if you are January, and they don't merge together as soon. Especially right now, I would have imagined in a normal scenario, us and January would have worked much closer. But given the scenario right now, I don't feel that has happened as much. So that means that your cohort size is smaller. So that is something maybe you want to think about.
Kaustubh,
for me, as I was thinking of the cohort size, and it's obviously a double-edged sword in terms of whether you want to be part of a bigger cohort or a smaller cohort. It really depends on your comfort level and what you're looking for. You do the specializations together. You do the specialization together with your January batch. So that's not a difference. That's where you share classes with them. Apart from that, there are some disadvantages in terms of how like you'll have a smaller, I think you might have a smaller time leading teams, leading clubs and the council if you're in the January batch, because your elections happen now, and like you have to really give up your position in September as quickly as for the September batch soon. So I think you have a slightly shorter stint as a council or a club member.
Not really, Kaustubh. Sorry.
Very little. Like it's a very small difference.
Yeah.
Because you have the break also in the middle, so that's why they have a shorter time. But in general, you like all the workshops and everything. There are slightly different workshops, like case cracking levels. Also, there are different levels because you expect the September batch to have a higher case cracking level than the January batch. So you might merge them later in something like that. So there are some differences, but more or less you get similar exposure. You vie for the same jobs, you fight for the same jobs. Correct. You just have more preparation for the September batch. You have like 3 months advantage in terms of getting to a comfort level here in France, especially for an international community. You settle in, you get to know your batchmates, you have some time to really build your career path, I feel. So that's my sense.
Okay, awesome, guys. Thank you so much. Achit, I'm taking over from you. Now we enter the Q&A part of this webinar. So the participants have already shared a bunch of questions with us as part of the registering process. So we have some questions ready, which we'll shoot at you while we wait for the Q&A, the questions from the chat box from YouTube to flow in. The first question is at you, Leon. We have one of the participants asking us about a dual or double degree experience. I know we've discussed this briefly over text that you decided, or you're still contemplating whether you want to pursue your double degree or not. But if you could just talk about how you applied and why you're contemplating that decision right now.
Sure. So the double degree I applied for is in NUS HEC double degree. And it basically means I have to study for another year in order to graduate and say that I'm from a double degree student from HEC and NUS. Originally, I was supposed to go with last August, but then I decided to do the specialization term here at HEC. And then that meant that I had to wait for the next August, which is this coming August, in order to go to NUS. So effectively, it would mean I'm studying for more than 2 years, and I also have to pay extra tuition fees. But the advantage of that would have been to go to Singapore. If I wanted to stay in Singapore and, find a job there, then they have a lot of like internship opportunities and career opportunities because NUS is, the main, like one of the biggest universities in Singapore, very small country. So that was why I decided to do the double degree. I would say that's the only reason I can think of that you would want to do that, because Singapore, like jobs are very competitive there, as I'm sure you guys have heard of. So if you want to study, want to work in Singapore, then it's easier if you study there first.
Okay, got it. So the next question is for the S19 students. So either Vishak or Kaustav, one of you can pick it up. The participant has asked, what are the internship opportunities available for S19 in the view of the pandemic? So yeah, if you could tell us how your internship experience is going.
Kaustav, do you want to go first?
You go.
Okay. I think I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to tell you guys what it is. There's a bunch of people who have lost their internship contracts due to what has happened. There's a lot of companies that have sort of pulled back, etc. But there are also good news coming in terms of a bunch of remote internships that have happened. I know there is at least 5, 6, probably even 7 people who are going to be doing Amazon internships on virtual basis. I know a few who are going to be doing investment banking internships on remote basis. There's also a few who will probably be joining a private equity fund or a venture capital firm. But I think given the current scenario, it's pretty difficult to land an internship, especially on the industry front. And when I say industry, I mean other than consulting and let's say private equity, etc. That's my sense. So you have to sort of look at those companies that are either in regions that have opened up. So one way to look at it is put a region filter, or to put an industry filter in terms of where can you make the biggest fit. So region fit would be one of the countries that is opening up faster from what I read is Germany. So there's a bunch of people who are actually getting internships in Germany. There's also certain roles that can be done virtually more easily. So those you can pick up. However, speaking to a few career consultants, the way we spoke to Bain on Friday, and I asked them this specific question in terms of how would you like us to be prepared when we come for full time. What they said was, we understand what the current scenario is, and we would like you to show progress in whatever is meaningful for you to apply. So that means, can you do pro bono volunteering? Maybe. Can you do something of your own? Maybe that's an opportunity as well. Maybe you want to take a break and make the most of it. And if you feel all of that creates value for you while you apply full time, Bain said they would be sort of happy with either of those approaches. So while opportunities to find them are tough, there are solutions to sort of work with.
Continuing what Vishak said, it was brutal for a while. I had 4 interviews lined up and all the internships were cancelled, and one day before the interview. So it was really a good reality check and a gut punch as well, because they were industries that I really wanted to work in. But I feel, and this was around in February, March, when there was a real rush in terms of internship offers as well. The school does provides you with a lot of opportunities as well. So like there is a portal where you will see all the job internships and even full-time opportunities. And that gives you a good, not only just the opportunities, but gives you a good indication of what kind of industries are looking for jobs, right? Vishak mentioned the region filter, which is super important right now. Like Germany has opened up a lot. A few of my friends have already started working on the travel to Germany to start their internships like next week. So regions have opened up, industries have opened up. Even the internship that I've recently been able to convert the opportunity, they approached me. So that way there are companies who are actively looking to work. My internship is also remote, so I'll be working from here in my room. So there are opportunities out there, and hopefully till the time you guys join, situation will be much better.
Okay, I think that's very great to hear. That was a question that was on top of everyone's minds because of this scenario. The next question we have is regarding the Paris Supply Innovation Cluster. Have you guys had the opportunity to work there, or do you know anyone of your classmates who have worked in the innovation cluster, and what has the experience been like? This question is open to anyone who has anything to add on this.
So I think what you're referring to is the innovations cluster for the entrepreneurship track, entrepreneurship specialization. Yes. Right. So yes. Only those who have taken the entrepreneurship specialization will have the opportunity to work with scientists who are working in this innovation center to come up with new business ideas or new innovations. And that is part of the entrepreneurship track exclusively. So you work with the scientists together to come up with a new business idea, and then if it's successful until that point, you then pitch it to investors and hopefully start up a proper company. But that's the only instance I know of people working with the innovation center. I don't know about other guys.
No additional insights on this from my side.
Okay. Kaustav, anything from your side?
Yeah, same. Like I haven't had any. Unfortunately, I haven't had any interaction with that.
Okay. So then we'll just move on to the next question. Guys, I mean, it's almost been a week, I think, since the lockdown in France was officially declared is over. How's the situation over there? Like, and how are things returning to normal? And especially on the HEC Paris campus, what's the situation like today?
I think Vishak is the best person to answer this question. No, Vishak?
No. Why? Okay. So let me put it this way. I think even without the pandemic, the school experience is a little cocoon of its own in terms of being away from the city. That means that you don't know exactly what is happening in the city sometimes, and I think that was the case even during this period. There is a large forest. There is running tracks, which are an envy of a lot of people when they hear about. But having said that, what I'm hearing now is that, so for example, we rented a car yesterday and followed whatever guidelines that were required to sort of go out. There were still certain shops that were open. People were still on the roads. However, things will not be the same in terms of, for example, public transport after, I think, 4:30 p.m. is not allowed unless you're working. Or, for example, cafes and bars where you used to have food are no longer open for service, right? You have to pick up, etc. From a school perspective, I think some of the things that had changed drastically where you couldn't meet your classmates and socialize. You couldn't meet more than one person at a time, even outside your rooms. That was the intent, to sort of reduce physical interaction as much as possible. And I think some of those have been relaxed per norms from the government. So that is great. So there's a limit of up to 10 people that can meet right now versus the 2 that were there earlier. However, there are still safeguards that need to be put in place. But I think we are fortunate enough to be in a campus versus stay in the city. And I think Lian was someone who stayed in Paris before coming back to campus. So I think hearing from her would give you a different perspective.
Yeah, Paris was really isolated because you don't really know anybody in Paris. I mean, even if you do, they probably stay more than 1 kilometer away from you, so you're not allowed to go and meet them. You can only go out for 1 hour a day. And then you had to have this attestation, which you carried everywhere. And if you didn't carry it, you'll be fined. And then on the attestation, you had to write the date and the time. So it was really, really annoying and frustrating just to go out. If you just wanted to buy, I don't know, a pack of cigarettes or whatever, you had to, do the form and everything. and then have people question you, why are you here? So that was before the lockdown. Now that the lockdown is over, from what I've heard, like people are going out, going to shops, etc. There's social distancing in place. But of course, bars, restaurants, cafes are all still closed. And because Paris is in the red zone, the government has not said when they will open these cafes, restaurants, and bars yet. But for places outside, so in the green zone, like places to the central and like south, west of France, those places are now, there's much more freedom. But we're still stuck in campus and red zone areas. So the restrictions on bars, restaurants, etc., they still have not been lifted. And we don't know when they will lift. So there's no activities, nothing to do in Paris at the moment, apart from just going to see friends. And if you want to walk around, everything else still closed except shops.
Sorry, Costa, before you sort of jump in. But however, I want to sort of make one thing, be very thankful to the school during this time, right? I think there were enough information that was really sent well. I think there was a point of contact that was taking care of communication between us and the school. He was Emmerich from my batch. He was a student life rep, and he literally showed us, like, during a tough time, how can you step up and be a leader. And a real big shout out to him in terms of how he handled communication, concerns from everyone on campus at the time when everyone was concerned what is going to happen. So, for example, Oshan was told to restock on a much more frequent basis because there were still, from what I remember, at least 500 people on campus that continued to stay back here, right? There was still, though limited, cleaning that was going on. There was still garbage disposal that continued to happen. There was still medical staff that were available. And for me personally, like being away from the country, I did not feel at any time that the school wasn't sort of taking steps to make us feel welcome here. So I'm thankful for that.
Fantastic point that Vishak mentioned was how calm the school was, how the people who were in charge, even the dean and the administration, they were calm about things. Of course, this was an unprecedented situation, but the people here tackled it really well, and it felt like home. Like even cocooned in my room, meeting friends, like one friend a day, maybe at best, and I still didn't feel that I was in a situation where I needed to make urgent decisions or critical decisions. I always felt that if I needed some help, I could go to the school or go to the student life at Emmerich, or go to even my classmates to just address my fears, my issues. You had enough people here who were supporting each other, if not physically, then at least through digital communication and whatnot. So there was always the support, and that was the biggest part. School had obviously given open areas to people to just walk even in couples during the time. So they knew that just sitting in the room would obviously not be the feasible solution. They were strict enough to enforce rules. There were warnings. So if there was any noise complaint, the security was there in campus, and they want people not to, gather. So the rules were in line with what France as a country and the president was thinking of and doing. So that was, and we still are in a controlled, like the school has not just opened up and, opened the canteen or opened the cafes here. They've still been smart about it. The canteen is still closed because obviously there'll be a mass gathering there. And the best part is, like, obviously this situation, you want to make the best out of it. So I learned cooking. Like I never thought I'll cook ever, and I've learned cooking here. So like you want to make the best, and the school provided that platform that you still make the best out of it. I felt that was the good part.
Okay, that's awesome, guys. It's good to know that the school is being really supportive. It's really positive for us as well to take back. This question, I think one of you, Kaustubh or Vishak, or actually Lean, I'm not sure if we still have classes, so I'm only posing it to S90. So, I mean, given that a large part of the MBA experience is collaborative working, so with the whole shift to online classes, what do you think is the hardest thing? Either Vishak or Kaustubh?
Vishak, I'll go first.
Sure, please.
Yeah, so biggest difference I felt were some of the experiential learning activities that we do in classes. So in our second term, we had a course organizational behavior where we had like 4-5 exercises that were only beneficial when you do it with another person, like negotiation or teamwork or those activities. Those I think get limited, even though Zoom provides you the breakout room experience, like being able to read body language in negotiation and like facial tics and whatnot. That made the difference, even though we had the class physically. But if that class had happened online, I don't think the experience would have translated so easily. Even in this term, we had a class mergers and acquisitions. I felt the professor could have done much better, and he felt more prepared had it been an like physical class in a classroom. He wasn't ready to quickly adapt to the online system. So I felt there were some missing gaps in terms of how much we can learn and how much the professors can also communicate. We had a management buyout lecture that the professor adapted really well. He had like a 4-camera setup, and he was like writing on the board, typing, replying to chat. So it really depends on how the professors had been able to translate it, and they did a pretty decent job. So obviously some of the things were lost, and I think Vishak will be able to elaborate even more.
Sure. Let me just pick up from there. So I think the school took about a week to completely transition to online. And when I say online, it means online exams, online reviews, online breakout rooms, everything online, right? Having so many people sort of move online, all courses to be done, I think more than decent job being done to sort of quickly give us solutions. Right? Obviously, there is going to be an experience loss. For example, I used to love the water cooler moment between classes where I used to get to meet all of the classmates, right? Whether it was over a coffee or whether it was over, a glass of water. So that I miss. I also miss after the classes, you get to walk back to your rooms, have some of these stats, etc. I think those are things that you miss. But there's also advantages in terms of how do I put it? There is more structured talking because you're now focused on making really valid points one at a time. I felt in some classes people have started being really focused on what they want to pick. And Kaustubh mentioned the management buyout course in particular. Very well done in terms of engagement as well as in course distribution, content distribution. However, there will be a few hit and misses, given some of these courses were not designed for online. But the school is open to sort of taking feedback and taking corrective action.
Okay, that really puts things into perspective for us, guys. Thank you so much. Now we have the questions pouring in from the YouTube channel, so I'm going to pick a few questions. The first question is directed at you, Vishak. How did your internship at Urban Clap for product management help you in your MBA journey? And later on for internship?
I think that's for me.
That's Kaustubh.
Okay, it says Vishak here, but yeah, Kaustubh, please take it.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. So how did your internship at Urban Clap for product management help you in your MBA journey and later on for the internships and job offers?
So I'd say like the objective of doing the MBA internship with Urban Club was to get an experience of product management. I feel like I've built my career over the 4 years in trying to be a jack of all types guy, where I have knowledge and information on all different aspects of a business, be it product management, be it data analytics, database management, be it general strategy, be it a little bit of finance. So I felt like I wanted to explore the product management side, and it has really helped me get my internship actually, because the internship that I am doing has a similar business model to what Urban Club is doing. It's called Main Street, if you guys want to check it out. And so like that, talking about just the Urban Club experience was enough to like really put me in an advantageous situation when it came to that internship search.
Okay. Amazing.
Like it's a good topic. Sorry.
Go on.
What are you saying, Matangi?
No, go on, Kaustubh.
Yeah. So in general, it's a diverse experience. It's a very different experience because I was focused on one particular project. So it's a very good story for me to talk about during interviews. That's a big difference that I felt, that because I took a break after leaving my last job. I took a 3-month break, so I really wanted to justify that break. So I took that internship, and that really, like Urban Clap, maybe just the Indians might have heard of it. It was a very different startup compared to the other startups that I worked at, like Snapdeal and Cast24. They were more structured. They had a very unique hiring process, which is going to really help me going forward in my internship as well. So, like particularly doing such small internships helped me in general, even during my undergraduate as well. And of course, we can talk, like whoever has the doubt, if they want to talk more about it, like they're obviously welcome to connect with me.
Okay, thank you, Kaustubh. The next question, I think, Vishak, is for you, because you mentioned you want to do an exchange at Columbia. And the question is, does attending an exchange program improve the chances of placement in the host country that you're going to for exchange?
Wholly depends on what kind of exchange program you're going to. I will tell you the reasons why I felt I want to go. One of the things was building a larger network. If you look at the kind of people that come to Ivy League, you have a larger cohort that means more chances of having classmates who can then go be CEOs, right? And then that's a great opportunity to sort of not let go of. And also building your network in a different country like New York. So for me, that was the pull. I don't probably want to work in New York or in the US, but there are certain people who do want to. There are certain schools that will allow you their career services. Certain of them won't. So you need to be careful while you make that decision of which school you go to. That's point A. Second is immigration is very important. I think that's something that everyone sort of needs to look at based on their visa situation, of how you can get work, visa, permits, etc. based on the exchange. So those are two things probably that you can think about.
Okay.
Archit, hold on 1 second, guys. Just checking in for time. We just have 2 more minutes, but we have a few more questions for you to answer. Do you mind staying on 5 more minutes, maybe?
Sure. Matangi, if you could have a hard stop at 6:35, that would be super helpful.
Sure. We'll make sure we do that. Is it okay for Lee and Kaustubh as well? 5 more minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my next question, I think, is one that's on everyone's mind. One of the things that HEC advertises is the ability for its students to change their country, career, and sector. So what is your take on, for a person who's trying to change all 3 or at least 2 out of 3, what has been your experience, and how easy is it to make this transition? This is open to all 3 of you, whoever wants to pick it up.
Yeah, I think I can start with this one. Just from what I have seen in my graduating class now, switching all 3 is not easy. Most people manage to only do like 1 or 2 switches. And that's just because of the market, right? It's very competitive, and especially here in France, they look at your background as if it's something kind of set in stone. So if you've done marketing, then you're only likely to get marketing position. That's just for here in France. And the language is another barrier. But for the other countries, like other Western European or East, like countries like Germany, etc., I feel like they're more open, especially for the tech companies. They're definitely more open to people from different backgrounds, especially if you're coming with the MBA from France, from HEC. It's something that's quite well regarded. And you have companies like Amazon who typically hire quite a few MBAs. So people do manage to do the switch, like industry, function, and geography. It's a bit rare, I would say, but it's not impossible. It depends, depends on the opportunities available and how open you are, I guess, to maybe not getting your dream role, but to getting something close.
Okay, thanks, Lian. Maybe we can pick up another. We'll try to get 2 more questions squeezed in.
Sure.
One question on entrepreneurship, and again, feel free, one of you can pick it up. How do you believe entrepreneurship works as a specialization if someone wants to enter consulting? Any thoughts on entrepreneurship specialization and the opportunities for entrepreneurs at HEC? So basically, entrepreneurship as a specialization, if anyone can throw some light on.
So I have a couple of friends who did the entrepreneurship specialization. Some of them really liked it. Some of them just thought it was okay. I know one guy who is currently starting up his own company here in France based on a project that he did because of the entrepreneurship specialization. So I think the opportunities to start your own business because of that specialization are pretty high. They're pretty good opportunities, but a lot of people just don't end up doing it because, I mean, they chose this specialization just to get an understanding, but they're not necessarily ready to start a business. So that's one thing. To transition to other industries, I think someone mentioned this earlier, but the specialization is not exactly crucial to getting a job in, say, you want to do consulting or finance and you do, not finance, but if you want to work for an industry role and you do the entrepreneurship specialization, it's not, it's definitely something that, you can definitely sell and, try to make the most of. So there are no like hard and fast rules as to what specialization you have to do if you want to get into a certain industry, except like Vishak said, except for finance, maybe.
Okay. All right. There's one more question on internships. So this person wants to know, is it necessary for us to do an internship between the time our term ends and the last term ends and the time we graduate? We can, the question is, can we start working right after we finish classes in the last term? So any of you?
Good question. So a lot of the September 18, like those who are in my graduating group, they have already started working even before they graduate. So we graduate in June. And that's because they found jobs in Europe where they didn't really need the diploma to start work. However, in a lot of countries like the US, Singapore, Japan, and even France, you do need to wait for the diploma. So the only thing you can do from Jan to June would then be to do some sort of internship either here in France or wherever you have the visa or the right to work. That is one of the things that I would say look out for, because if you don't find something in Europe and you want to go back home or to a country like the US, you do need to wait. You do need to wait for the diploma, and that is the frustrating part. But yeah, a lot of S18s have already started working without the diploma, and some of them are also doing internships in France. So it's up to you.
Okay. Okay, amazing. I'm going to squeeze in one more question. Archit, do you want to go or should I?
Go ahead, Matangi.
Okay. So one last question is: are the MBA clubs exclusive to MBA students, or do you get people from the masters, MIM, and undergrads also participating in the clubs?
Sure. Let me take that question. So the whole point is to sort of make it exclusive for us. What we have to understand is that there is a much higher participation of the other programs at HEC. One of the things that you will discover is that HEC is actually known for its other programs versus the MBA in France. So these clubs are an opportunity for us to sort of take leadership and ownership. However, you can coordinate with them for events. So for example, the private equity club works with the MBA private equity clubs works with the one at Grand École to host certain events. But you want to use this as a launch pad for focusing on the MBA per se. That's how I would look at it.
Okay.
And no, it's exclusively for the MBAs. Sorry, factually.
Perfect. Okay, I think that's all.
Matangi,
sorry. Go ahead, Kaustav. Go ahead.
Yeah, 1 second, just to add a final point. There are some associations where MBAs and other programs collaborate, data mines, and there are a couple of in-house like consulting organizations that HEC has set up where MBAs and MIMs can collaborate. So if you ever want to collaborate with them, there are opportunities. I have a friend who's doing the data mines thing. He's part of the board, and he works with master students to organize various events, workshops, and a lot.
Okay. Thanks, Kaustubh. So yeah, I think it's time we wrap up. Thank you so much, Lian, Vishak, and Kaustubh for taking the time out to do this. And also, I mean, your inputs are invaluable. We still have a lot of unanswered questions. So if you don't mind, we'll email them to you and you can take your time to answer it if that's okay with you.
Sure.
So thank you so much. And thank you all the participants on YouTube for your enthusiastic participation. I hope the session was useful to all of you. The session is recorded and it'll be uploaded on the YouTube channel. So in case you all missed some parts, you can go back and go and have a look again. All right. And thank you once again. Have a great day, all of you. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Best
Bye,
of luck.
guys.
See you guys soon on
Bye.
campus.
All the
Yes,
best, guys.
best of luck to everyone.